This is a sports betting podcast from pregame.com for October 1st, 2009. I'm your host, RJ Bell. I'm joined by Vegas Runner, a genuine professional batter here in Vegas, Marco D'Angelo, 30 years in the business. This is segment 3 of 5 this week. The subject is big game previews in the NFL, Pittsburgh Steelers, San Diego Chargers. We have a Pittsburgh authority here, Marco D'Angelo. You lived there 50-some years?
46.
46 in Pittsburgh. Been in Vegas now almost 2. But first up, every big game that we preview, Vegas Runner, give us a line report on the game.
Okay, this one opened up offshore last week when the lines first go up for NFL games for the following Sunday. They opened it up Pittsburgh -5. And a few offshore books opened them 5.5. So it was anywhere from 5 to 5.5 with the over-under 41. By the next morning, you couldn't even find a 6. By Monday morning, we were looking at 6.5. Pittsburgh is 6.5 point favorite, and the total up to 43. Here in Vegas, they waited to open the total and opened 43 immediately. So the over got action, and Pittsburgh got action by the early Monday.
Big action, because in the NFL, a 1.5 point line move is pretty significant.
On a big game like this, especially.
Now, not through a key number yet, so the question is going to be, are we going to get to 7? All right, Marco, all joking aside, you have a great handicapping record with Steeler teams. You follow them, or Pittsburgh teams follow the Steelers especially closely. What is the one factor, and we're going to get to more than one, but what's the one factor the handicappers out there cannot disregard in this game?
Can the Steelers get enough pressure on Rivers without Troy Polamalu in the lineup?
All right. Pressure, and because clearly looking at the last 2 Steeler games, the defense has played very well until the fourth quarter. And speculation with some insiders is they're getting tired. Is it the age? Is the team getting a little bit old? Is it the rotations aren't enough people coming in and out? So what's your gut feeling matchup-wise?
What's happening it's not the rotations, it's the fact that the Steeler offense is not having those long sustained drives that they used to have, where they wear the other team down and have their defense on the field. The Steeler defense has been
But did the Steelers have those drives last year?
They had a lot of those running, they had the long sustained drives that they had with, the running game hasn't been what it has been in the past 4 or 5 years. But last week you saw a life of it with Parker having a good game. But really, if you look at the stats, Ben's having a good year with passing.
All right, but what I'm saying is this. I watched every Steeler game last year. They're running better this year. So my question is, they won the Super Bowl last year. Their defense was one of the best of all time, literally. This year, they're running better. Defense is playing, in the fourth quarter especially, not very well. So what's the cause, and what does it mean with San Diego?
Again, to me, it's the defense is on the field for too many plays. They're not getting pressure on the quarterback, and the reason they're not getting pressure is they're not bringing their blitz packages that they're known for. And I believe that they just don't have enough trust in the secondary to leave people in single coverage without Polamalu in the lineup. And what's happening is they're not getting off the field on third down. Teams are converting those key third downs and keeping drives alive.
I agree. So now the question is, San Diego, a team that, due to a weak schedule, was projected to win the most games
this season
in the AFC, if I recall correctly, are getting 6 points, 6.5 points at Pittsburgh, 3 points for home field. So that means we're saying the Steelers are 3 to 3.5 points better. Is there any reason that could possibly be? You told me a lot of negatives about Pittsburgh. The defense just isn't delivering. Against San Diego, how's it going to match up?
Well, one thing about that line, you're paying a premium because it is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are one of the marquee teams in the NFL. There's certain teams in every sport.
Agreed.
The other factor is they're defending Super Bowl champs, and they're underachieving, and people are perceiving them sitting at 1-2 with Baltimore at 3-0. This is really a must-win game for the Steelers.
So it's motivation and the premium that's on Pittsburgh all the time.
Absolutely. And you might say desperation more than, if they go down 1-3, 1 win, 3 losses, they're in trouble in this division.
Key game. What's the one fact?
I think the initial line move was based strictly on injuries alone. San Diego has key injuries: Vincent Jackson, Sean Merriman, and LaDainian Tomlinson. That's your 3 key stars. So I think this move was based on that alone, and not on the marquee name with Pittsburgh, because San Diego is just as much, and this is like double revenge for them. They lost twice to this team last year. I think the problem with Pittsburgh is they're not getting turnovers this year. They're -4 in turnovers. And now we're far enough in the NFL season where if you're betting sports, you need to look at the turnover battle. It's not by accident that the Giants, Green Bay, and Denver lead the league in the turnover battle.
All right.
They're all great against the spread.
So again, a lot of good information. What's the one factor?
Pittsburgh?
Injury? No. What's the factor in the game that the handicappers need to consider the most?
I think it is
San Diego injuries?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to see if these guys are going to play, for one, and how healthy they are. Even the quarterback, Rivers, is probable, so that means he's banged up a little bit. He's not feeling 100%.
And now with LT, his injury, is that the kind of injury? Because usually those marquee injuries are accounted for, but we got some D-line injuries. Those are the ones usually that aren't as accounted for.
Yeah, and the thing is, everybody looks at Pittsburgh as a strong defensive team against the rush, especially, and San Diego hasn't been able to get nothing done against the rush. They're one of the worst in the NFL this year. So, it looks like a game that Pittsburgh can dominate if they win in the trenches.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
One factor, too, that nobody's talking about, if you like to look at angles and handicapping, this is a highly motivated revenge game for San Diego. San Diego lost twice to the Steelers last year, the second game being in the playoffs that ended their season. So it's a strong motivational edge for the Chargers, playoff revenge.
Now, just some stats here real quick. This is interesting. You got a team, Pittsburgh, at home that has a real propensity to the over, 46-20 towards the over the last 66. So that's a really long-term strong over. And San Diego on the road is 18-6 towards the over. So you got two over situations. But then you've got, I think, a good point. Steelers are running better this year. You got a San Diego team that can get overpowered. That's probably their weakness. You've got a Pittsburgh defense which has been tiring. It seems like it's a recipe for Pittsburgh to play an old 2004 type, 2005 type Steeler game. Can they do it? I don't know, but you got to think that's going to be their intention.
As I said to you guys in prep, going way back to the 70s, Chuck Noll, one of the great Steeler coaches, used to have a saying whenever they had a couple bad games, we're going back to basics. And you might see that in the playbook this week.
They're going to try for sure. You don't want to get into a passing battle with Rivers. But I think the Sharps jumped right on what RJ said right away. The numbers show that both these teams are in over situations in this game.
Yeah, but
and they bet over 41 right away.
You're doing a great situation, and that's interesting, the line. You're doing a great new report at pregame.com every Monday called True Steam. So you can go there, click the blogs, and you can get the report where you're breaking down all the line moves.
Yeah, the real moves.
And the true moves. And one of the things you've been talking about is sometimes the public has a real good feel, the Sharps, the wise guys have a real good feel about which way the public's going to be betting.
Correct.
So they'll see a number like it opening up at 5, and maybe they like San Diego, but they're figuring, I know the public's going to bet Pittsburgh. I'm going to bet this at 5, get this thing up to 6, 6.5. Maybe it gets to 7, and then we get to bet San Diego plus 7 for maybe double that much. So we've got a 5 and 7 middle, and we've got a better number on our strong position. I really wonder, as we know the Steelers are one of the marquee teams out there that get the most public action. Is that line move about taking a position, or is it potentially trying to position themselves for a middle?
I think it's more on trying to position themselves, like you said, to get the best of both numbers in this one, where they're going to get 5, 5.5 on Pittsburgh, and hopefully 7 on the flip side with San Diego. I don't think it's a position based on strength where we're going to lay 5.5, we're going to lay 6, and we don't care where it goes. We're keeping all the liability on Pittsburgh.
Last comment. To me, whenever I look at a game, I like to say, if I move it 3 points one way and 3 points the other, does it ever make sense at one of those numbers? If it does, you have a great bet. If you look at 6.5 and say move it to 3.5, I can make the case that Pittsburgh is one notch better than this San Diego team, and that's it at 3.5. You move it to 9.5, it's an absurd number.
That's ridiculous, yeah.
So to me, clearly, there's a premium on the Steelers that Marco made a point of, and the real value has to be on San Diego unless there's a reason that I'm not seeing. All right, great stuff. Up next is part 4 of 5, another big game preview, Minnesota and the Green Bay Packers, Monday Night Football. Remember, you can get all of our videos at pregame.tv.